Hi everyone. In this video we're going to look at 4 absolutely amazing queen and pawn endgames. These all come from the book Test Your Endgame Ability by August Livshits and John Speelman. And let's take a look at the first one. So here it is white to move and win. So white's down a few pawns, but he has the move and the black king is short on squares. The black king cannot go to any of those squares. So the winning move is queen to a4, which is a checkmate threat. Just to illustrate the mate, suppose black makes a queen move, like queen to g7, then queen to c4 is an immediate mate. Well, what if black attempts to get an escape square on c6? Well, then there's a different mate. Queen to e4 is now a mate. The only other thing to consider is the black king running. What if the black king runs to e6? Well, then the winning move is the surprising f5 check. And the point of that move is if black takes the pawn, then white wins the queen with this maneuver. Queen to e4 check, forcing the king to f6, and then the black queen gets skewered with queen to d4 check, and we win the queen on the next move. What if black doesn't take the pawn? Well, suppose black moves to d7. Then he's in trouble. He's going to lose the queen anyway with queen to a7 check, forcing the black king to the back rank. And once he moves to the back rank, then we can skewer the black queen once again. Well, what about moving to, say, I don't know, e7 or f7? If he moves to e7, we can still play queen to a7 check. And if the king goes to the back rank and we try to skewer the queen, this time he could protect it with king to g7. However, we still win with the move f6 check, removing the defender. If the black king moves away, we still win the black queen. So there's no way out of that. Let's look at the next one. All right, I love this one. This is my favorite one. Okay, white to move and win. Go ahead and give it a try. Press pause. Okay, this is a very difficult puzzle. The only winning move here is queen to b4. The point is that gives the black king no squares. The only moves black can make are with his queen. But he has to stay along this diagonal to keep this pawn from promoting. He can't even give a check on the back rank because we will promote and block the check. So black has to keep that pawn pinned to the white king. So we have to consider 4 different moves. What if the black queen goes to d5 or f3 or g2 or h1? Well, let's consider going to d5 first. Well, then white has this beautiful sequence. Queen to a4 check, forces the king to b6. You don't want to block with the queen here. You'll just trade queens and then promote. So king goes to b6, and then the stunning queen to b3 check, forking the king and the black queen. So either we take the black queen next and then promote, or black takes us and we skewer the black queen. So we're going to win it on the next move. All right, so that takes care of queen to d5. What about queen to f3? Well, a similar fate awaits black, starting with queen to a4 check, king to b6, and this time queen to b3 check with the same idea. If black captures, he gets skewered. Okay, that takes care of queen to f3. What about queen to g2? Well, again, something similar happens if we can maneuver the black king and call check from this square here and here, then we will skewer that black queen in the same way. Let's see if we can manage it. Queen to a3 check, king to b6, or king to b5. Doesn't matter which, because we are going to still play queen to b2 check, forking the king and the queen, and there's a similar fate as before. I think the most testing move in this position is what if black moves the queen all the way to h1? Then it's very difficult to achieve the same idea, getting the queen all the way to b1. Let's see what happens. Queen to a3 check is what we'll play. The king will move either to b6 or b5. Let's say b6. I'll let you consider all other possibilities. Then we'll play queen to b2 check. And here I'll show you three different moves. Let's start with king to c7. If king to c7, then again we have a very beautiful move here. Queen to h2 check, forking the king and the queen, and again, if we get taken, there is a skewer happening here, and the black queen is lost on the next move. So king to c7 is out. What about king to a5? Well, then we can play queen to a2 check, king goes back to the b file somewhere, and then the idea, queen to b1 check. And if black takes us, then we promote and skewer his queen. Finally, what about king to c5 in this position? Well, if king to c5, we need a new idea. And the idea is simply king to a7. And we're going to promote the next move. The point here is that black's king is blocking a check along that diagonal. So we're going to win. The only try maybe is queen to h7 to pin the pawn, but then we can play something like queen to b6 check, king moves maybe to c4, and we can bring the king down like this. And this king has shelter. There's not much black can do to keep us from promoting. This queen has that promotion square covered. All right, so that takes care of all moves after queen to b4. Beautiful endgame study. Let's look at another. Okay, here again, white to move and win. If you want to give it a try, press pause. I'll warn you, it's tough. All right, so it looks like both sides are mutually trying to promote. How should white promote? I want to point out, first of all, that taking this pawn doesn't do any good. Black will capture, and then both sides will race towards a queen. And white will queen first, but black will queen right afterwards, and the position is a dead draw. So white should not take that pawn on a7. Instead, white should just rush forward and play h4. Now black's best hope is to rush his a pawn forward to a5. Taking on b6 is just too slow, so he has to play a5. Now wait a minute. Isn't white going to simply queen first on h8 and stop black from queening on a1? Well, let's see. Both players race toward their queens. White gets there first, but black says, no, not so fast. I'm queening anyway. Do you see the point? The point is white cannot capture because that's an immediate stalemate. All right, so how does white win this after a1 queen? Well, it turns out the only winning move here is queen to g8. Now white's point is he would like to move this king out of the way and checkmate the black king. So he keeps his queen on that back rank and keeps that threat alive. He couldn't move the king out of the way now to one of these squares because his queen would simply be captured. So he moves the queen out of the way first, but he keeps it on that back rank. What can black do about this? Well, there's only one real try. If he does something like check from d4 or f6, then white's just going to move his king and get a checkmate. So black's only hope really is to mirror white and play queen to a2. Again, you can't take that queen or it's an immediate stalemate, and if this king tries to run, then we just take that queen. So now what does white do? Well, he moves the queen to e8, again threatening to move the king off with a checkmate, and again black should try mirroring white with queen to a4. So what does white do now? He can't take the queen. It's still a stalemate trap. He can't move his king because black is threatening to take the queen on e8. So what does white do? Well, now he plays a beautiful maneuver, queen to e5 check, forcing the black king to a8, and then white returns to the back rank on h8. What happens if king to a1 now? Well, it looks like the position we saw earlier when both sides just queened, but the difference is the black king is now on a8, and that's a major difference because white can capture the queen. It is not a stalemate, it is a check, and white wins. But wait a minute, let me go back a minute. As soon as both sides queened, why did white take this little stutter step here with queen to g8 and then force the king to a2 and then go to e8 like that? Why did white make that move, queen to g8? Well, here's the reason. If he went immediately to e8 with the intention of calling check here and then heading back, then black doesn't have to play queen to a4 and mirror him. Black has the nice move queen to g7. And that stops the white king from moving off of the back rank. So this little move, queen to g8, is this brilliant move designed to lure the black queen forward, so then after queen to e8, the queen can no longer go to g7 and stop that king from moving. So that is really amazing. All right, let's look at one more endgame puzzle here. I love this one too. These are all brilliant. So again, white to move and win. So once again, we see white is down a few pawns, but having the move is great in queen and pawn endgames. You can deliver the first check and harass the enemy king. Okay, the winning move is the most forcing move in the position. It's queen to e4 check. There's only one legal move. The king must move to h5. Now, queen to h7 check. And there are two legal moves here. If the king runs to g4, then queen to h3 skewers the queen and wins the queen on the next move. So the only other thing to consider after queen to h7 is what if the black queen blocks the check? What can white do here? Well, white has the amazing queen to f5. Quiet move, not a check. Looks like it gives black free reign, but here's the point. Black is almost totally in zugzwang. Almost all of his moves are self-destructive. Let's consider all the possibilities. Let's look at pawn moves first. Well, this pawn can't move, it's pinned. What if this pawn moves? Well, that just traps the black king, and that's a mate in one. Okay, what if this black pawn moves? Well, that's the main line we'll consider in a moment. Well, what if this king moves? Well, that can't happen. That's immediately a mate in one. Okay, what about queen moves? Well, if the queen moves here, again, it's a mate in one. Where else can the queen move? Well, it can't go there without being captured. 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 What about going all the way here? Do you see white's move? Yeah, white skewers that black queen and wins it. So that queen cannot move either. The only move black has really is c5. Well, then white plays e6 and threatens to promote his pawn. And we're in a similar situation where black has no moves other than to push this pawn. This move did open up one more possibility. The pawn is no longer guarding that square, so you may wonder what happens if the queen goes to f6. Well, we simply trade queens and then push our pawn and promote, and it's an easy win. And remember, the queen can't go anywhere else. It can't go back there without getting skewered. This pawn can't come forward without getting mated. So what's black going to do besides push the pawn to c4? That's the only option. Then e7 threatens to promote. Black's only hope is to cover the promotion square, and there are two ways to do it, queen here or queen there. Well, queen can't go there, we've got a skewer, remember. So let's consider what happens if the queen goes to c6, to guard the promotion square, and incidentally also checking the white king. Well, then white has this cross check. Queen to f3 check, blocking the check and giving a check of his own, and forking the king and the queen. So if the king moves out of check, we simply take the queen and win the game. And if the queen captures us, we capture back, and we're going to promote on the next move. So that proves a win for white. All right, I hope you enjoyed these endgames as much as I did. Thanks for watching.